Hey everybody, I'm Steve. Good to be here today. I'm from Citrix. We're right across the street, which makes it easy if you want to come over and visit sometime. I want to talk a little bit today. Is there a clicker here somewhere? Here we go. Got it. About what we're looking at in virtual reality and augmented reality at Citrix. So for those of you who don't know Citrix, Citrix is a roughly 30-year-old company that specializes in application delivery. We're used by most of the largest corporations in the world. And you know, this is our mission statement really, is we see a world where people, organizations, and things are securely connected in simple ways to make the extraordinary possible. And it's really around helping companies securely deliver applications. And this started out years and years ago with Windows applications. We now have branched into Windows, Linux, mobile, web, networking, and a whole range of applications, but it's around delivering apps. And so as we move into 3D applications, into virtual worlds, into augmented reality, that's the next generation of apps that we want to help people deliver. And so really what we're about is helping people with the future of work. It's helping people be more productive. And when we think about that in the sense of where does this go in the enterprise, that's what we're looking at. So it's not so much around delivering things like games, which are cool. It's around things like, some of these things like the design applications that the last couple speakers have talked about, but even just your day-to-day productivity applications, that's our bread and butter. How do we make people more productive in what they do? So, you know, we think in the enterprise that AR and VR will become a big play. Right now, I'd say they're completely nascent. We see early experiments in the enterprise about how people will approach what they're doing with VR and AR, but we see a lot of interest. And we had our big trade show event last week that we call Citrix Synergy, and we showed off some of our early concepts, which I'll show you guys here today. And we've got a tremendous amount of interest, and that's almost entirely an enterprise IT crowd. So they're definitely starting to see the potentials there. This is our CEO, Kirill. He definitely thinks that 3D is a big wave. And in fact, 3D itself is already a big part of what we do in terms of delivering applications in engineering, 3D modeling. Good example of one of our customers, if anyone's a car racing fan, the Red Bull Racing Formula One team is a big customer. And they have about 400 engineers that design their race cars. And originally, you know, 10 years ago, if you walked into their office, there was the biggest workstation under everybody's desk that you could get under there to power the 3D modeling and fluid dynamics and things that they would do to design those cars. As they virtualized all of those applications and moved them back into the data center and started delivering them with Citrix, what they've now moved to is very small, thin clients around the office on all the desks. You're no longer bound to your desk. You can move anywhere in the office, just badge in, and you can get the full power of those 3D applications delivered. And we have customers like Red Bull, customers like Nissan, customers like Airbus that use that same kind of model where they use the computing power in the back end, but deliver out to these very thin clients where you don't need a lot of power. And this same capability turns out to be very applicable in the AR, VR space. So I want to show you guys a few of the prototypes that we've done over the last year or so, using some of these technologies and getting this into the AR and VR space. So Receiver is a piece of software that we produce, which is the front end of what we call Zen Desktop. Zen Desktop is our application virtualization software that can deliver a rich desktop application like Windows or Linux out to any device. And Receiver is the software that runs on those end devices. And we have Receiver on Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, virtually any platform. We even have a Receiver that runs on HTML5. So if you have a device that can do HTML5, we can deliver any application to it. So in this case, we took the Microsoft HoloLens and embedded our Receiver in just via the embedded browser and gave us the ability to get a set of Windows applications that were, you know, full-fledged Windows applications, not the kind that would run on the HoloLens, but the kinds that would run on your workstation, delivered out into the augmented reality. You know, as a first challenge here, obviously, is input. These are applications that are designed for traditional keyboard and mouse, trying to input at them by staring at keys on a virtual keyboard, super, super clunky. So as we've gone along, we've been looking at ways to address this as well. In the VR space, same kind of technology, taking that ability to deliver those applications. We're able to deliver that into a full VR space. So this is an example of doing this with a Gear VR enabled browser in a full VR space, but where you can embed, again, these full rich Windows and Linux applications into a virtual reality environment. So you can take your existing investment in these types of applications, but move them into VR spaces. Now, in terms of super low cost VR, for a cardboard class VR headset with an iPhone in it, we're able to do these things where we can broadcast these applications. In terms of giving you the option for input into these, we actually have the only way that it's possible to use a mouse with an iPhone. It's called our X1 mouse, and it interfaces through our Citrix receiver software. So you're able to get a augmented reality view through the headset, but use your traditional keyboard and mouse to input data into the application, which is useful for a set of different types of apps. This is another one just based off the same kinds of technologies, but adding a little bit more to it with things like motion tracking and obviously some different types of input devices. But this is the state of the art for what we're doing. And we showed this one off last week with our partners at Red Bull. What we did was we actually built an experience with them where they gave us the model for the race car. It's actually a 2-year-old model of the race car because they don't give out the models of the current one for fear someone will get them. But they gave us an old model of the race car, and we built an experience of the pit lane at a Formula One race in full VR and rendered this in high definition detail. And what we wanted to do is provide a fully untethered experience to be able to move around the car and interact with the car untethered. And the challenge here is that what we wanted to render was too big, too complicated to render on a portable device of any size. And so what we did is we dedicated an entire server in a back room to rendering this, and then broadcast it over our receiver software. And the latency on our receiver software has gotten to be very, very low. You can do real-time interactions with this. And so what we took is a small Intel NUC, a battery pack, and a VR headset, and basically built a Batman-style utility belt out of it to give you the ability to be completely tether-free in the virtual space. And so we actually had to have somebody walk around behind you just to make sure you didn't kind of get totally out of control and walk through a wall, but it gave you that ability to be totally free, and that ability to take that back-end compute power and leverage that somewhere where you don't have that much compute power. And so in some of the cases that we're experimenting with now, we've actually taken that Intel NUC and we can replace it with a Raspberry Pi. So imagine a $5 or $10 Raspberry Pi that you can power off a couple A-cell batteries, being the next generation of this, where you could literally just tuck that into the headset and really start to free this up. So the hardware capacity is going down dramatically, but with the desire to continue to render very photorealistic, the capacity to do the rendering is never going to go down. People are going to use the available capacity to do more and more photorealistic, faster frame rates. So with the ability to push that to the server, but deliver this over a distance, that gets really interesting. So this is just an architectural diagram of what this looks like. Over on the left, you see what's in the server room is we have our Citrix Zen desktop software running on top of our Zen server hypervisor. This is part of the secret sauce that enables this. Is a few years ago, we co-developed what's called vGPU technology with NVIDIA, which allows you to virtualize a GPU. So in a cloud style or multi-homed data center environment, you can actually share GPUs between clients. So you can do this cost effectively even with very high-end graphics processing units like in the high-end NVIDIA server units. So gives you that ability to share, gives you that ability to project and remote that over to the small device and then project that over a state-of-the-art headset. So, so there's a set of demos. I think everybody will have access to the slides. So if you grab the slides, you can click on the links. You can see a bunch of these demos. They're up on YouTube. Would love to hear your feedback on these. My email, if you want to drop me an email, steve.wilson@Citrix, or my Twitter handle is virtualsteve. And I think we got a few minutes for questions.
Yeah.
All right, so any questions? Raise your hand. I think we got a mic here we can pass around. Looks like we got a question right up.
Flip it over to Slido. Any questions on that?
Okay.
Reminder for everybody, by the way, that this is slido.com is where you go to submit questions. But, sir, we'll do it live, old-fashioned way. So, sir,
Yeah, can you support 4K?
We can do 4K.
you repeat that.
Yeah, so the question was, can we support 4K? And the answer is yes.
Anyone else? There's got to be more. Come on.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, we got one more.
Yeah, let's keep
Where's
going.
the slides available? You mentioned,
Are the slides?
That's a good question. I don't know personally.
All right, well, if you want the slides, steve.wilson@Citrix, drop me a note. I will send you a link.
Perfect.
All right, guys.
Steve,
Hey, thanks a lot, everybody.
thanks so much.